Oh, is it? Oh, okay. Oh, it is. Oh, yeah, true. You're right. Yeah, that's correct. You're right. I can see, yeah.
Welcome to the Willara Local Planning Panel meeting of the 27th of August 2025. My name is David Ryan and I'm the panel chair. With me on the panel today are expert members Claire Swan and Megan Jones and Community Representative Jessie Lockhart-Grass. I'd like to begin by respectfully acknowledging our Indigenous heritage and recognise the ongoing Aboriginal traditional custodianship of the land which forms this local government area. We have no apologies today. In relation to conflicts of interest, prior to the meeting, all panel members were required to declare any interest in writing, which has been done. I'll just go around the panel now just to for verbal confirmation of those interests, if any. Megan?
I have no conflicts of interest.
Claire?
No conflicts of interest.
Jesse?
Yeah, I have no conflicts of interest.
And I have no conflicts of interest. Under the Local Planning Panel's Code of Conduct, panellists are required to lodge with the Chair an annual return disclosing interests. The returns must be tabled at the first panel meeting after the lodgement deadline. All panellists have lodged their returns. The returns are available to inspect at this meeting on request. Redacted returns will be published on Council's website in accordance with the Code of Conduct. Procedures for today's meeting. I will introduce all items on today's meeting agenda in order and identify those who have registered to speak on any item. Those speakers other than the applicant will have 3 minutes to make your presentation. Your 3 minutes will be signified by a sound, so please listen out for that. I may allow an extension at my discretion. Representatives of the applicant will then be provided with an opportunity to make submissions to the panel and respond to issues raised by objectors. Panel members may ask questions of any speaker. Please have your speakers on mute unless I call upon you to speak. Please also note that this meeting is being recorded and the recording will be available on Council's website. Once we have completed all agenda items, I will close the public part of the meeting and the panel will move into a closed session to deliberate on all items. Minutes of our decisions will be made available on Council's website within a few days of the meeting. I'll now introduce the first item on today's agenda, which is DA 462-2002C 161 McPherson Street, Bondi. This is for modifications to alter internal layout, window changes and alterations to building envelope. I have one person registered to speak against this item, Mr. Mark Zions. Mr. Zions, are you there? Could you introduce yourself? And you have 3 minutes.
Mute.
Mr. Zion, you're on mute. Mr. Zion?
Yes, hello. Is that okay now?
Yep.
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay. Sorry about that. Anyway, yes. Okay. What happened here is with this development, right at the very start, they asked for a high, very high, the height to be about what they're asking for now. So what happened is the council rejected that height at the very start. And now what they're trying to do is, what they've been doing is, I believe, misleading the council and leading them onto all this escapade into all these different changes to their plans and then reducing it down. Eventually, they've got back to where they started, which the council had refused. And what's happened is I've had 8 real estate agents coming here to my house. I'm next door at 159, and they've been telling me that at the very start, the developer knew that there was an engineering problem relating to access into their garage area, that they've got to virtually needed my property to go onto my property to turn around to go down into their garage area. So they knew from the start they had an engineering problem relating to this access to their garage and their lifts, to take their cars up and down in the garage. They've been messing around, changing the plan, bringing it down, looking like they're going to comply. But I feel they never had any intention to really change their first plan. And they have circumvented and misled the council, I feel. And really, we're back to where we were at the start with all this nonsense going on, changes and changes and changes. And I think they've really not honoured the council or respected the council in any manner. And really, it's been a big trick, the whole thing. And we cannot, I feel the council should not listen to, their to not go ahead with this proposal. It's all been changed back to what was there before. And every time I've tried to deal with these developers, they've tricked me. One thing after another. They've smashed into my house. They've smashed into my fence. They used somebody there who is like a psychopath, and he went and smashed into my fence and hit my house. And then
Mr.
also,
Zion, if you could just keep to the facts in relation to the application, we're
okay,
here to hear.
yeah, okay. Anyway, so the thing is, right. Okay, so what's happening is the height is, well, the Waverley LEP says 8.5 metres. I don't think the council should agree to anything more than that. And the court, I think, what was it? The Land Environment Court said, I think, 9 metres or 9.1 metres. So I can't see why it should be changed. And it's been a long time. They've messed around the council all this time. And at the start, I think the rules were 9.1 metres, or at least the court had ruled on what it should be, the height. And I don't think the council should change it. The planning panel should change from what the court said. The court said this is the maximum, and no matter what they're saying now, they've let this thing go on and keep changing it all the time. And the ruling should be based on what it was at the start, what the court said at the
Mr. Zion,
start.
that's your 3 minutes. If you could conclude now, please.
Yes. Okay. All right. There's been quite a few effects on my property, shadow effect and so forth, and environmental effects. There's a lot of windows they put in there, and affecting my privacy and so forth. But I think the whole thing's been a ruse, and the council should stick to, the panel should stick to what the court said, the Land Environment Court said.
Thank you, Mr. Zion.
They've just been delaying it and delaying it.
Thank you, Mr. Zion.
Thank you.
Any questions, Mr. Zion?
No.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Right, thank you.
I have one registered speaker on behalf of the applicant, Matthew O'Donnell. Mr. O'Donnell, do you wish to speak and respond to Mr. Zion's concerns?
Thank you, Chair. I'll be very brief. I've listened to Mr. Zion's concerns. I've got nothing further to add in respect to that. Just probably by way of background, which is largely in the report for you and the rest of the panel. The proposed modification seeks an additional 250 mil of building height and an increase of GFA by 2 square metres. This is not what can be perceived as a second bite of the cherry, which was alluded to by Mr. Zions, but it's essential really to ensure the new dwelling can satisfy contemporary residential standards. The increase in building height is necessary to accommodate essential structural and servicing requirements to support acceptable levels of internal amenity and building functionality. Levels 1 and 2 of the dual locks at present will be unable to satisfy those standards without the proposed increase in height. Some ceiling heights, due to constraints imposed under the current DA approval, are already below the preferred minimum of 2.4 metre, and the increase will enable compliance with those modern expectations. There are only minor additional shadows cast in the morning to the west and in the afternoon to the east. and none to the adjoining property to the south. Notably, the additional shadows only affect a small part of blank walls, an inaccessible rock face and secondary feature garden space. And there's no habitable rooms such as living spaces or private open spaces affected, and that's made pretty clear in Council's assessment report of the submitted shadow diagrams. The enclosure of the rear courtyard to extend the study at the ground floor of the western dual-lock dwelling breaches the FSR development standard by additional 2 square metres. The proposed area of the breach is located within the height plane of the maximum permissible building height and doesn't result in any additional adverse shadow impacts to the private open spaces or habitable windows of the affected properties. So with that in mind, I've got nothing further to add. I'm supportive of the council's assessment report and thankful.
Thank you, Mr. O'Donnell. Any questions, Mr. O'Donnell? Yes, Claire?
Can I ask anything? Or?
Oh, no.
No.
Thanks, Mr. O'Donnell. Can you just clarify, just in response to the objector's point, it was originally a 600 mil increase and council did reject that in the application. Is that correct? And it's now 250?
So when we lodged this modification, we were seeking an additional 600 mil just to make that internal amenity much better than it is now, and to give us a bit of playroom with some of those services. Upon further assessment and discussion with council officers, we did some more detailed shadow analysis, and there was starting to be a creep on some of those adjoining properties, albeit minor, which council was not overly comfortable with. So that's why we've come in and settled at the 250 mil. Essentially, that's probably as far as we can push it without limiting that 2.4 floor to ceiling height and compromising the overall development. So that's where we've landed, and we've essentially landed somewhere where there's no additional amenity impacts that we're comfortable with and would appear the council officers are comfortable with.
No more questions? Thank you, Mr. O'Donnell.
No worries, thank you.
That is the last of the speakers on that item. I'll now move to item number 2. It is DA 167/2025 in relation to number 35 Landgraf Street, Bondi Junction. I have no one registered to speak against the item. I do have the applicant registered, Ian Spirit Jones. Mr. Jones, do you wish to speak on your behalf?
Thank you. Just briefly, there were 2 conditions recommended by the council's assessment, which was a landscape plan being submitted and a privacy screen to the rear balcony. We've already submitted those plans, so a landscape plan has been submitted, and there is already a privacy screen of 1.7 metres to the eastern side of the rear balcony. So we believe we've met those conditions that have been recommended. Other than that, we're thankful for the support of the council's assessment to date. That's all.
Thank you, Mr. Spirit Jones. Any questions?
No.
Thank you very much. Now move to item 3, DA 169/2025, in relation to number 97 Francis Street, Bondi Beach. I have no one registered to speak against the item. I have a representative of the applicant, Andrew Atchison. Mr. Atchison, do you wish to present to the panel?
Yes, good morning, panel. Look, we've got a recommendation here for refusal. I'm concerned that the planner's report, the assessing officer's report, doesn't include some of the drawings and some of the information that forms part of the application. In particular, there's a drawing which is a site area analysis study of that locality. That's probably the critical issue in this application, because we're asking for a 4.6 variation on lot size. Now, we've got a situation where we've got a very unusual block in the middle of Bondi, which is 553 square metres. We're required 650 square metres for a Torrens subdivision in that situation. Now, what we're trying to do there is to get 2 dwellings onto the site. Currently, what's there is what's been classified as a dual occupancy. It's actually an old residential flat building which has been modified ad hoc many times over the years, and is essentially it's obsolete. The building's it's unsightly. It's basically in the way. Now, we're stuck in a situation down there because we're in an R2 zone. We have very little opportunity for any forms of development other than something like a dual occupancy, which is why we're seeking the Torrens subdivision. Now, in our proposal, what we've got is we're proposing one block that is compliant with the subdivision, the 325 square metres. The leftover is 228 square metres, which we argue well, the basis for the 4.6 variation is if you actually look at the locality and you look at the various site areas, very few of the sites around are actually larger than 325 square metres. It's approximately 20%. Now that said, to get a Torrens subdivision, we need 650 square metres. Now, there are only two sites within the immediate vicinity where that could happen. Now, one of them has just been subdivided. It's at 20 Forest Knoll and what's become 85 Francis Street. It's just down the street from us. It's a very similar proposal to what our concept plans show. Now, basically, my argument is that it's unreasonable to use the 325 square metre minimum site area as a controlling standard because it's largely unrepresentative of the locality, and the zone objectives can be well met on a smaller site. We have sites within the vicinity that are down to about 150 square metres. Other issues are flagged in our concept plans in regards to access to parking. In our original proposal, we have a right of way on one of the blocks. Now, why we've gone for but basically we've split the blocks, so one of the blocks complies and one of the blocks is under. Now, the larger of the two blocks, basically it will be losing space because of the right of way to get to the parking to come down from Forest Knoll. So in the end, you end up with two sites that are approximately the same size, at least in buildable area. There was some comment by the assessing officer that we have issues with excavation, geotechnical, that sort of stuff. Now, there was a geotechnical study done for the application. It wasn't mentioned in the assessment report. Now, it's actually the same geotech engineer that has done the work just down the street at number 20 Forest Knoll. And it is quite possible to do what we're proposing. And in fact, the way that the concept plans have been arranged, we're largely using the existing topography of the site, where the driveway access is, for example. We're falling across pretty much at the natural grade of the site. There's some comment that
Mr. Atson, you need to start winding up, please.
Yeah, there's some comment that we need to do excavation of the cliff face. Now, if you look at the plans and some of the additional information I've sent in, where we're proposing the garage for the Lot 2 site, it's actually higher than the top of the cliff edge at that place, and we're not actually causing any damage to the cliff. So in short, our argument is that it's unreasonable to stick with the 325 square metres because it's just not representative of the locality. It restricts the zone objectives. In terms of the unnecessariness, it's unnecessary because on a 228 square metre site, we can well get a very, very livable dwelling, as is demonstrated by the other buildings in the surrounding area. In the locality, there are plenty of buildings there that are on less than 200.
Mr. Atson, you need to conclude, please. Yeah.
Yes, that's it.
Thank you very much. Any questions? No. No. Thank you very much, Mr. Atson. I'll move now to the next item 4, DA 137 to 2025, and resolution number 19, Delview Street, Tamarama. I have 2 objectors registered to speak. Firstly, Mr. Matthew O'Donnell. Mr. O'Donnell, you have 3 minutes. Mr. O'Donnell? I'll just move to the others.
Sorry, you there, Chair? Sorry, I was having trouble unmuting. You there?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay, sorry. Thank you. I'm speaking on behalf of the owners of 1 Khaleesi Street. At present, they benefit from existing views of the ocean to the southeast and from the first floor living room and ground floor bedroom. These views are all water views and are available in a standing and seated position. The impact on views from the development at 19 Delview Street is attributed to the proposed bulk and massing at the front setback as proposed. I consider a more skillful design would ensure that at the minimum, the proposed building envelope at the front of the site should have a greater front setback from the front boundary at both ground and first floor levels in order to minimise the negative impact on existing ocean views from both our client's site and also other properties in Khaleesi Street. Council's assessment report goes on to acknowledge that view loss will be experienced by residences on Khaleesi Street and it's assessed as being minor, moderate and severe. But despite this, the recommendation is to approve the DA. Finally, we note that the applicant did eventually provide a visual impact assessment, but despite there being multiple submissions that raise view loss as a concern, it would appear that no re-notification of this visual impact assessment occurred to allow potentially affected properties the ability to review this assessment. I've got nothing further, Ed. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. O'Donnell. Any questions?
Please confirm. So can we confirm you're the owner of that property, sorry?
No, I'm not. I'm acting on behalf of the owner.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Next speaker, I have an objection to the application is Julian Harris. Do you identify yourself, please? You have 3 minutes. I can see someone there on the screen, but no one sitting in the chair by the looks of it. Julian? I think I'll need to move on. I can come back after I've heard from the applicant. Okay. I have 3 speakers registered on behalf of the applicant, Mark Shapiro, Vaughan Blank and Kate Bartlett. I'm not sure whether you all wish to speak, but whoever would like to take the lead, please, if you would identify yourself and any responses you have in particular to the objectors.
Sure. Morning, Mr. Chair and panel. As you can see, we have obtained a... let me digress one sec. Let me introduce, we've got Mark Shapiro, who's my architect, and Kate Bartlett, who's my town planner, both of which would be happy to address any concerns that the council has. As you can see, we have obtained a recommendation for approval from council. We've worked very closely with them. We've amended the plans accordingly to obtain that approval. We think it is a fantastic outcome. It is a complying development. And I think the plans, as well as the recommendation for approval, speak for itself. If there's anything in particular that the council would like us to address, we would be happy to do so.
Thank you, Mr. Blake. Any questions for Mr. Blake?
You heard the criticism of your design that it blocks the views from Carlisle Street. Can you respond to that?
I can talk to that briefly if you like, Vaughan.
Sure.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I'm the town planner, Kate Bartlett, who's assisting with this application. As you can see in the assessment report, and as a consequence of a request for further information process with council officers, we amended the design. There is some impact to elements of the properties along Carlisle Street. However, the elements that are causing some view impact are within the planning controls or the height and the building envelope controls, and as a consequence meet the view sharing principles. As the panel would likely be aware, there is likely often some impact as a consequence, and the principles through the Land and Environment Court are intended as sharing of views. So that's how we can see that assessment. We, as a consequence of that process with council, got an updated detailed view impact assessment, and portions of those views are still retained, but most importantly, the elements that are impacted by the majority of the development that sits entirely within the height control and also the building envelope controls.
Thank you. I do see that Mr. Harris seems to be there now. I'll just turn to him first, and then the applicant can respond to anything he may have to say. Mr. Harris, do you wish to speak? You have 3 minutes, and you're on mute. You'll need to unmute yourself, Mr. Harris.
Apologies, I just had someone come to the door. Yeah, mine's very sort of short, sweet, and naive. My readings indicate council regulations are designed to safeguard public health and safety by ensuring developments meet the set standards. This covers things like structural integrity, environmental sustainability, and aesthetic qualities. The proposed development appears to breach both height and setback regulations. These regulations are known in advance and not guidelines. I just see no reason why the architect and developer of 19 Delview can't comply with them accordingly. Basically, to allow regulations to be breached / treated as guidelines defeats the purpose of actually having them in the first place, and I feel opens a bit of a Pandora's box up of potential ongoing sort of detrimental community outcomes. And that's my one. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Harris. Does anyone from the applicant team have anything further to say or wish to respond to Mr. Harris there?
Yes, just to briefly reiterate that the now remaining very minor breach to the height standard comes as a consequence of an existing excavated basement floor level. And then the component of the FSR is a consequence of the currently unsubdivided site, but once it's subdivided, it will be a compliant development.
Thank you, Ms. Barson.
Panel, if I may just add.
Yes, Mr. Blake.
As you may well know, this is a redevelopment site. And whilst there are minor impacts on views, the development that we have proposed is compliant. So there are, it's a dual lock. The dual lock, the first dual lock facing Carlisle Street is 100% compliant. And the second dual lock, which dips below the first dual lock, so there's no impact on views, has a slightly minor non-compliance because of the excavated basement or whatever that excavated storage area that currently exists on the site. So in essence, it's a complying development.
So can I just clarify that? So it's not 100% compliant. There is an FSR variation, but it is compliant upon the subdivision. And there is a height variation, but related to a technical issue due to the excavation. So the panel is being asked to consider clause 4.6 as not 100% compliant. Is that correct?
Yes, Ms. Swan, that's correct.
That's correct. Could I also add, and thank you, panel and chair,
yes,
that the front setbacks, we've specifically set them a lot further back than what we could have in terms of the prevailing street setback. So, and that was for the express purpose of minimizing any impacts. So, in our view, I'd like to reiterate that we believe we agree with the conclusions of the report that the design sits very well within the streetscape and is entirely reasonable, and in our view, an excellent outcome for the area.
Thank you, Mr. Shapiro. Anything further from the applicant? No further questions?
No, thank
you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll now move to item 5, DA 124 2025, relation number 375, Old South Head Road, North Bondi. This is a change of use and fit out of the ground floor as a cafe with trading hours between 6 a.m. and 7 p.m. Mondays to Sunday. Installation of new commercial kitchen to the lower ground floor, internal alterations to the residential units on the first floor. I have a number of objectors. If I could just say that you do each have 3 minutes, but if you could just avoid repetition of things you've heard before. We've read all of the submissions and we'll listen intently to what each has to say. First speaker I have is Joe Markin. Mr. Markin, if you announce yourself, and you have 3 minutes. Mr. Markin doesn't seem to be here. I'll come back to Mr. Markin if he returns. Sarah McMahon. Ms. McMahon, are you there? If you could announce yourself.
Sorry, I was using my keyboard rather than my touchpad. So can
Is
you
this Mr. Markin, is it?
Yes, it is.
Okay, please proceed. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Yeah, okay. I'd like to start off with the floor plan on drawing A0004. There is 19 patrons on the DA conditions, and that seating area will accommodate considerably more than 19 patrons. So I would like to see a change in that, an amended drawing on that to limit the number. That's my view anyway. That sort of brings me on to a segue of parking in the area. The parking is extremely congested, 7 days a week and around the clock. Across on the other corner, we have Community Health Support have set up a base there. They have about 4 vehicles there that are coming and going all the time using the street parking. In fact, at the moment, and there's no activity in 375 Old South Head Road, obviously at the moment, there are cars on the apron right now as I speak. So the parking for one loading bay and one retail car space is just simply far short of what requirements are. So I think that maybe should be considered to be expanded. And that brings me to my final concern is at the moment, Jesse's Bakery is operating up north on Old South Head Road. I think it might be 433 Old South Head Road. And in the rear, and understandably, there are stacks of plastic crates, and they are screened off by a very high brick fence. But there is no such construction around the perimeter of the 375 Old South Head Road, which means the place will look like a dump from ongoing, because that's just the way they operate. So I would like to see an aesthetic screen around that as well. And that one might improve the general location and view from people who live in Shore Street and Maroubry Road. And that's basically my 3 issues. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Markin. Any questions?
No.
Thank you. I'll now move to Sarah McMahon. Sorry about the interruption before.
That's okay. Thank you so much. I don't want to repeat what was just said, but maybe reiterate that in the revised DA that with that waste management consideration, there's been some bins put in the rear of the property, but we'd also like to request that these are shielded. And we have an ongoing issues with pests and rodents on this particular property and have for many years, and feel like proper shielding and waste management of that waste management system would further help with this rodent issue. And I guess Jesse's Bakery being a very reputable product in our supermarkets, is that ensuring the sanitation of the site is really important. Aware that works began without an official DA and trees were removed and a fence has been removed and planting has been removed that was providing a level of shielding for the rear of this property, which is an eyesore. We see that Jesse's Bakery presents an opportunity to improve the aesthetics of the building. So we're in support of that, but we just need a bit more information about it. And I guess I'm somewhat opposed to it becoming a full-blown car park out my bedroom window. If more parking is put in there, that it just has a really strategic landscape plan put forward. And I guess concerns within the development budget, which I think is at $75,000, that potentially not enough funds have been allocated to address the exterior of the property. And it'd be good to have more information about, how that's going to be achieved. In regards to parking, yes, it is an ongoing issue, and I'd just like to speak on behalf of the neighbours on Shore Street that it is a very busy cul-de-sac with apartment blocks, semi-detached houses and large houses with multiple tenancies. So the implications of a bakery proposed from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. doesn't really give much relief for the neighbourhood in terms of parking at any point. So just wondering, what is the strategic plan for parking as a whole within the area, given the long operation hours of the development? That's all I have to say right now.
Thank you, Ms. McMahon. Chris.
Thanks, Ms. McMahon. Can you just clarify, on your street, is there parking restrictions at all?
No, there isn't. There is some on the very tip of Waverley Road. There's been some changes made lately because it is a nightmare, I think, as the school buses come down. I can't remember exactly, but there has been some restrictions put on to allow the traffic to flow in the mornings, where people were sort of parking all day and every day, that it became a huge bottleneck, and you could almost not even exit Waverley Road on weekdays. So some updates have been made, which have definitely been noticed by the community as an improvement.
Thank you.
Any more questions? Thank you, Ms. McMahon. Next registered speaker is Louise Main. Ms. Main, you have 3 minutes.
Thanks very much for allowing me to speak, and I won't go over any of the ground that's been covered already, other than to say, yeah, those parking changes that were put in really did make a difference, but still really the no stopping on Saturday, but it's not enough, and particularly with the number of clientele expected in the cafe. A lot of people are walking and crossing those roads, and this number will only increase. So I'm particularly concerned that someone will. I've seen some real near misses in the area, and I'm really concerned. And it's such an increase, and for such long hours. So the 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. having trucks come, the cars loading and unloading bread and supplies will not only be very noisy, but will be increase the danger in a situation that's already quite precarious. As a mother with young children, I'm quite concerned about other young children, and there's a lot of walkers around those areas. So probably that hasn't been mentioned is the long hours for me, speaking on behalf of 4 and 5B Waverley Road, and probably a little bit the you've made some good, there's good stipulations placed about waste, but really wanting to see who can be accountable, because there's a bit of a loss of, even though we would be delighted to have a well-maintained cafe in the area, there's a bit of loss of trust after, these works went on. We saw all the trees being cut down, and so, who is going to be accountable if the stipulations on the waste, which is a big issue with rats, and so just making sure somebody it really follows up that does happen and it's not just ignored. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. May. Any questions?
No.
Thank you. The last registered objector I have is Mark Pasternak. Mr. Pasternak, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you. I'm not going to repeat, obviously, the issues seem to be consistent. I'm actually the owner of the adjoining property at 375 Old South Head Road. I understand it's a deferred commencement based on the applicant providing some additional information. I have some concerns in regards to obviously mechanical ventilation, which currently is proposed to exit directly onto our property. I understand there is the council has made concern over that and want to see more information in regards to that. Also, there's been a number of external condenser units for air conditioning that have been installed directly opposite our property, exiting onto our property. So I have a lot of concern as to noise attenuation and also obviously odours and smells coming out of that property directly onto ours. And I'm assuming that, I'm hoping that air conditioning will also be taken into account as to with the mechanical ventilation issues. The works apparently started without consent. Boundary fences were removed and all the vegetation was removed. We now have no boundary fence between our property and the applicant's property, which exposes our property to Waverley Road. There's no security now. There's just totally open space. In the removal of that, they've damaged the footing for the fencing, and I think that's something that hasn't been addressed in the report. I do understand that falls under dividing fences, but we have issues there which have been ongoing since the previous owner, with substantial rodents in the area, which end up in our residential parts of our property. And so I concur with the other objectors in regards to something needs to be addressed in terms of waste management, fencing, securing the site. And there is major congestion problems there. I understand where Jesse's Bakery is at the moment is also major congestion problems, which will obviously be relieved in that particular area once they've relocated. But the problems will be coming to Waverley Road, which is already significantly congested with large trucks and vehicles coming down that street and around that corner there, which in the past with the previous occupants has ended up with loading and unloading on the corner there and people picking up and dropping things off. And I'm not sure how any of this is being addressed, because as far as my understanding is, there has been no traffic management proposal or anything to address these issues. And I'm hoping that as a deferred commencement that perhaps the applicant will provide more information and there'll be opportunities for the council to condition some of these things in terms of fencing and waste management and traffic management, because at the current time they don't seem to be addressed in the applicant's submission significantly enough to overcome the potential problems that are going to develop in that space. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Pasternak. Questions?
Thanks, Mr. Pasternak. Can you just clarify? So when was the fence removed? Who removed the fence, and is it your whole boundary?
Yeah, look, I wasn't aware because the property's tenanted. I'm not exactly sure when it was removed, but my tenant advised me sometime later that she couldn't access the property because I think what actually happened is they removed all the trees in the rear of the property and some other sort of structures, and then the fence collapsed onto our property. Then part of it was removed and they had put apparently all their air conditioning units and all sorts of other structure all over our property. So I can't give you a specific date, but I believe it happened when they removed all the trees and the cool rooms and things at the back of the property.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions? Thank you, Ms. Pasternak. I now turn to the applicant's representative, Linda Rodriguez. Ms. Rodriguez, if you could make your presentation, and in particular, if you could respond to those issues that have been raised by the neighbours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As you're aware, my name is Linda Rodriguez. I'm the applicant acting on behalf of the property owner. We acknowledge the matters that need to be addressed as part of the deferred commencement, and they relate to environmental health, fire safety and waste management, which seems to be a hot topic. And we acknowledge that we are working to resolve these in parallel, and really appreciate Council's flexibility in this regard. I did note a condition of consent to reduce the patron numbers to a max of 19 by way of condition. There's no objection raised to this, obviously noting the constraints of the site essentially to accommodate sanitary requirements and the like for patrons, which comply with the relevant standards. And this may somewhat alleviate some concerns by the objectors regarding traffic congestion and parking. I will also just, I guess, acknowledge the illegal building works. and the intention is to make things right and regularize the works in parallel with a building information certificate, which is being processed in parallel with the DA. And that essentially the illegal works are subject to that BIC undertaken on the site, and the DA is simply seeking approval for the use and any remaining works required that are not subject of the unauthorised works. So I'll just maybe respond to Joe's concerns just in relation to detail on the floor plans. So we're currently working to provide a bit more detail on those floor plans. And as part of that, we'll obviously reduce the capacity and seating area to limit 19 patrons. And we'll do that as part of the deferred commencement condition requirements that will need to be to the satisfactory of council. The cumulative traffic impacts are considered negligible and I guess commensurate to the surrounding context, noting that there aren't actually no minimum parking requirements for patrons. And just in terms of the waste room, so we did indicate a waste room on the amended plans that's going to be provided in the rear courtyard with appropriate screening to essentially obscure view to the waste bins, and it'll also help to, I guess, negate the issues with vermin and the like. So I think that also addresses Sarah's point. But Sarah also raised the matter of illegal building works. We acknowledge illegal building works have been undertaken. And like I said, yep, the intention is to now resolve these and regularise the works in parallel with a BIC. And just to confirm, only 2 spaces are proposed, with the remainder of the rear courtyard to be either landscaped and include the waste room. And minimal works are proposed to the exterior. Road network congestion sounds like a broader issue beyond the proposal, but it does sound like council are working to resolve this. We don't feel that, particularly with the reduction of 19 patrons, that this is going to have a real material impact on congestion and parking demand. In relation to servicing, that can be regulated by way of control if required to minimise noise impacts in the early hours of the morning or the late hours of the evening. Could also consider a trial period should this address concerns of sensitive receivers. So in terms of further reducing the hours of operation or endorsing the hours of operation as a trial period between 6 and 7. I think Mark raised some concerns around noise from mechanical ventilation and AC. So those details will also be provided on the plans as part of the deferred commencement requirements. Noting recommendations for noise attenuation in the acoustic report will still remain valid and will be incorporated. I'll have a chat to the applicant about the tree issue. I'm not aware of the tree removal, but there may be, in good faith, an opportunity to provide some replacement planting in lieu of those that have been removed. And I'll assume the fencing matter will be resolved as part of a separate process between both parties, noting there's going to be a mutual benefit of having a boundary fence between the properties in any case. And that's all from me. Thank you.
Thanks,
if you have any
Ms. Rodriguez.
questions, happy to respond.
Could I just clarify there your comment about the consideration of a trial period? Am I right in hearing that as being between just relating to the hours 6 to 7 a.m. or more generally?
Yeah, I think there's already a condition of consent for a trial period, but that's for 6 a.m. to 7 p.m.
That AM or PM?
AM to PM.
AM.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions? Megan?
Yeah, I have a question really for clarification. One of the objectors noted that the compressor units for the air conditioning had been located on their property, and that seems very strange. Can you confirm all that?
Yeah, I assumed the AC compressor units were beneath the stairs, but I don't have the floor plans up, but I can confirm that.
They're shown in the recess on plan A 0004, they're shown in the recess between the two, basically parts of the building that occupy the whole site. But it seems like that, it seems like they're not there. It seems like they've been put on the neighbour's property.
I think Mark could clarify that.
Yeah, I'm not aware of AC condensers on a neighbouring property. That may be an existing encroachment.
Oh.
We might just ask Mr. Pasniak.
Yeah, it's in the recess.
Could you clarify where you believe they are?
No, so what happened originally, they located them on our property and then they removed them into onto the adjoining property, which sits within this recess directly.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
But there were obviously an issue regarding noise from those units.
Thank you.
Thank you for the clarification.
Thanks, Ms. Rodriguez. Obviously, there's some complexity to this application with council's lawyers involved, and I also appreciate the Dividing Fences Act, so I might have to seek some advice in the closed session. But it's not uncommon for a developer when they're, I guess, proposing or intensifying a site to actually put fencing in their DA. Is that something the applicant would consider in terms of replacing the fence that fell over?
Certainly, I'll have a chat to him and discuss that approach.
Thank you. Anything more?
No.
No. Thank you, Ms. Rodriguez.
Thank you.
That ends that matter. I'll now move to item number 6, DA 61 2018A, 17 Waverley Road, North Bondi. Modification to the internal layout of the approved dual occupancy external changes and modify wording to conditions. I have no one registered speaking against this item. I have Jenny Askin and Evan Gilchrist registered to speak on behalf of the applicant. Who wishes to speak? If not both of you, and if you'll just introduce yourself as you speak.
Thank you, Chair. I'll speak first. I'm the planning consultant acting on behalf of the applicant, and then Evan is the architect who can answer any questions afterwards. Firstly, thank you for the opportunity to speak this afternoon. We welcome the recommendation for approval, but we would like to just speak to some of the recommended conditions. We request that condition 2AB be deleted. The proposed concrete pathway within the setbacks is required as a solid foundation for the rainwater tanks and for the pool heater. As confirmed in the report, the provision of deep soil within this area is not required to achieve compliance. The proposed deep soil is at 86.9%, which is well beyond the required 50%. In accordance with section 4.153A, more onerous standards with respect to a compliant aspect of a development are not to be imposed. The intent of the original condition imposed by the panel was to provide deep soil within the front, and this has been achieved in the modification by providing planting in all areas outside of the entry path, the driveway, and the access to the side setback. We request that condition 2AC be modified to provide a setback of 900 millimetres from the boundary of the site in lieu of the recommended 1500. A 900 setback would still inhibit the parking of 2 vehicles in the basement, which is the intent of the condition, while also allowing for reasonable access from the front space to the internal stair. In addition, the provision of a 900 millimetre setback is more suitable from a structural perspective, and it's the most economical and structurally sound location for the wall, as it allows for the loads from the first floor and the roof over to transfer directly into the shoring wall. A greater offset would result in the walls being misaligned, and then this would require the ground floor slab to cantilever over that shoring wall and impose additional load on this wall, requiring further embedment of piles to support the load. I also note that B13 sets out the controls for excavation, and condition N requires that no excavation occur within 900 millimetres of the side boundary. Therefore, the setback of 900 is compliant with the DCP. And as mentioned above, more onerous standards should not be imposed to compliant elements. In relation to condition 19A, a flood barrier is included within the proposal and is shown on the stormwater plans. Therefore, condition 19AG conflicts with the flood report recommendations. In addition, it's not clear if condition 19AK requires the lowering of the pool from that approved. These conditions should reflect the fact that works have already been approved and only some components are being modified. Now, there has been some discussion with staff regarding this condition, and my understanding is the engineer has agreed to some changes, which you can obviously confer with post the public meeting. And we are really keen to ensure that condition 19 adequately reflects the proposal and takes into account the recommendations of the flood report. So just in summary, we request the panel allow for the pathway as proposed to the east and western side of each dwelling, a setback of 900 millimetres from the side boundaries for the basement level, including the piling, and amendments to the flooding conditions as recommended by the engineer as modified since the report. So we're happy to answer any questions that the panel may have.
Thank you, Ms. Hoskin. We have no questions. And Mr. Gilchrist, did you have anything you wish to say?
Nothing further from me.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Those matters will be considered in our deliberations. I'll now move to item 7, DA 267/2025, in relation to number 44 Military Road, North Bondi. I have one objector registered to speak, Patrick Nicholas. Mr. Nicholas, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you. My name is Patrick Nicholas. I'm a registered architect. I've been living in 42A Military Road, which is south of 44 for the last 25 years. I'm also registered under the RAB Act for Class 2 work, and we're currently doing about $100 million worth of work in Waverley Council in terms of Class 2 work. So I just wanted to sort of advise you of the knowledge I've got professionally as also personally living on the site for so long. In the last 22 years, we've had a trampoline blow off 46 Military Road and bounce off our building. Last week, we had a cold plunge pool blow off the same building and land in our building. We've had a 25-metre Angofra fall and land on our driveway. And we've also had a large sofa blow off a roof of a building. So I'm just sort of illustrating that we're the sort of a remaining residential house in a grouping of poorly constructed and poorly maintained residential flat buildings in the area. We're down like a skinny driveway. We've also had flooding to our house from number 44. So number 44 currently doesn't have a hydraulic system that's compliant. The downpipes just drain into the sand. And it's quite a large building, and it's also on a sloping site. So I think it's the whole site as well as the roof of the building currently flood our house. So you can imagine what the last 6 months has been like. So that's giving you the context, just getting into the detail. When these illegal works were constructed, we struggled with the builders sort of using our driveway and blocking our entry and exit from the site. I've had a look at all the consultants' reports for the DA, and it doesn't appear that any of them are registered as Class 2 consultants. The structural engineer's report is dangerously vague, and there's certain items in the construction that don't comply to Class 2 or any logic. There's timber posts supporting timber roofs on the 5th floor of a Class 2 building. There's also, I think there should be a requirement for a facade engineer to check the wind loading on all these things, because on all the glass balustrades that we do in the area, a structural engineer is required to design the glass and the fixings for the balustrades. And hydraulically, I had a chat to Joe Somerville before he left, that council didn't refer to their in-house stormwater engineers because the building didn't increase the square meterage by 30 square meters. But if you count up how big each of these balconies are, that does trigger the 30 square meters, and would like to take this opportunity as a chance to try and upgrade the hydraulic engineering for these balconies. There's downpipes, as I said, adjacent to these balconies. So by under the Class 2 RAB Act, each balcony needs falls of 1 in 80. You need a termination height minimum of 70 mil at the door, and then you also need an overflow point of each of these balconies, which I don't think are there.
Mr. Nicholas, that you have had your 3 minutes. If you could start coming to your conclusion, please.
Okay, so the summary is that we'd sort of like to either get engaged in the process, and I've engaged. My wife's a lawyer, and we've engaged a hydraulic engineer and a structural engineer because our concern is we don't have any faith or any insurances in place to cover our family for any insurable damage that might occur due to these substandard works undertaken at 44 Military Road. Thank you. And I'm happy to answer any questions on the technicalities that I've sort of brought up in this fashion.
Thank you, Mr. Nicholas. Any questions?
No.
No. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
On behalf of the applicant, I have George Lloyd. Mr. Lloyd, you have the opportunity to respond to anything you've heard or anything else.
Look, I'm the qualified town planner, practicing town planner who prepared the statement of environmental effects for the works that had been subject of a previous order by council for having been undertaken without development consent. We've gone through the process of seeking that development consent, which is where we are right now. I'm not qualified or in a position to respond to the neighbours' concerns regarding hydraulics, engineering, drainage, people's blow-up pools and trampolines, etc., blowing off their property onto the objector's property or onto the neighbouring property. My opinion in terms of imposing some type of regime or conditions which address those issues raised by the objector are not relevant to what's being applied for under the development application that's currently being considered by the panel. But that's for other experts outside my field of expertise to pass judgment on at the end of the day. If there's any questions regarding the nature of the actual proposal that's being requested in this RMDA, I remain available to answer any of those questions.
Thank you, Mr. Lloyd. Any questions?
Thanks, Mr. Lloyd. If you could just clarify then, the DA is essentially for the use of the balconies to obviously rectify the works, and there is a concurrent building information certificate which will deal with detail, or is that building information certificate been approved?
No, I don't believe that building certificate has been approved. I think it's subject to approval of the development application that's being applied for here right now. So the actual reconstruction of the balustrades, despite the fact that they were undertaken not like for like, would have ordinarily required development consent. That consent was not sought at that time. And so because of the way the planning regime operates, we cannot apply for retrospective consent for works that have been undertaken. So we're not actually applying under this DA for the glass balustrades as they have been constructed, but rather for the use of the space within them as an area of private open space in relationship to each of the units that have had new glass balustrades installed. You would appreciate, and I can tell by your nodding, you would appreciate that the actual the mechanics or the technical issues surrounding the suitability of the glass balustrades as they've been installed, and any other technical matters, i.e. related to drainage of the balconies themselves, would justifiably form part of the additional information that, or the supplementary information that has been submitted as part of the BIC, the Building Information Certificate. And again, I can't comment on the veracity of the technical documents that associate that particular process, because it's just outside of my field of expertise. But I would imagine that in getting to an issuing of a suitable building compliance certificate, that issues pertaining to drainage would surely have to be addressed in that context, and not in the context of the development application for the use of the space within the balustrades.
So perhaps, and we can take this on notice, the council officer might be able to give Mr. Nicholas the contact of the building surveyor dealing with the technical issues.
100%. Why not?
Yep.
Of course you could.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks. Any other questions? No. Thank you, Mr. Lloyd.
Thank you.
I'll now move to item 8, DA 363 of 2023 B, number 62 Willangra Road, Dover Heights. This is a modification to condition 1 and proposed deletion of condition 2A and condition 17 of the consent. Design amendments include relocation of the approved double garage, internal reconfiguration and minor external alterations. I have no one registered to speak against the application. Mark Shapiro registered on behalf of the applicant. Mr. Shapiro, do you wish to say anything to the panel?
Yes, I'll be brief, and thank you, panel, and thank you, Chair. Thank you, Waverley Council and the Assessing Officer for the comprehensive report. Our clients have lived in the existing house for many years, and this modification application is a reflection of their detailed understanding of their future requirements. It's been referred to the panel just due to the GFA non-compliance, which is largely a result of the existing dwelling, which is predominantly retained. We believe the outcome will be excellent for all, and there's a sustainable one due to the retention of the majority of the existing house. All the modifications proposed, other than moving the garage, are entirely within the existing building, so there are no impacts and only improvements to the streetscape. We fully support the recommendations, and we don't have any issues with the proposed conditions. Open to any questions if anyone has any.
Thank you, Mr. Shapiro. Any questions?
No.
No questions. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'll now move to item 9, which is DA 187 2025, in relation to number 210 Military Road, Dover Heights. Alterations, additions to the existing dwelling, including extension of living space, relocation of 2-car garage, improved landscaping, entry and amenity. Have no one registered speaking against this item. I have 2 registered on behalf of the applicant, Ellie Gastrate and Jody York. Mr. Gastrate, I think you're there. Do you wish to speak?
Yes, thank you. Good afternoon, panel, and thank you for the opportunity to speak with you this afternoon. As the council's recommendation is for approval, we'd like to thank council staff for their comprehensive analysis of the DA. And we've reviewed the conditions of consent, and we don't have any questions around them. However, I've got the project architect here also. If the panel has any questions for us, we're available.
Thank you. Any questions?
No.
No questions. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
That's is the last of the items in the open council agenda. As such, I will now close this part of the meeting, and the panel will now go into closed session to deliberate all the items we've heard. We'll consider all the matters raised in submissions and today, and the record of the panel's resolutions will be on council's website over the next few days. So thank you to council staff, thank you panelists, and for all those who presented today. And I'll close the meeting